Okay, Mr. Pete, we're going to take a look at your last lesson. And what we're trying to eliminate in your case is that you've got a great swing, but as we get to the top here, we still get a little bit across the line. If you notice how your club face is on the right side of your left knuckles. Our goal here is two things. Now, in this particular picture here, we were starting to do our little drill in the way that we were setting our hands. But I can tell you this, that your club face is in a more neutral position than we've seen. Typically in some of your old videos, that club face would actually be pointed more to the sky. The feeling, there's two things that you want to feel in your backswing. The first thing that we talked about during the end of your lesson is what triggers the backswing, what body part. Is it your hands and arms? Is it your body? And I think there's different ways to do this for different players, and it just depends on what you feel most comfortable with and what specifically are you working on. In my opinion, it's going to be much easier if we can have the feeling that the trigger position comes from your sternum or your chest, where you just rotate your sternum to the inside, say, of your right leg. Well, that will then pull the club a little bit more to the inside. And if you're not doing much with your hands, it's going to be very easy for you to set the club along this line that we have through the left heel and your right toe line. What we're trying to do is match this shaft up with the angle of this yellow rod down on the ground. What happens with you is you'll push your hands out. See how your club head, look where we started at the beginning. It's in the center of the club face, but now look as you go back on this line here, it's actually towards the heel of the club. So we know that the hands are starting to work out and away from the body in this particular swing here. From here, remember how we're trying to match this shaft up with this yellow rod, and then we're going to work on the right wrist hinging more upwards as opposed to around your body. When you start taking the club out like this and you get separation of your arms from your body, then what's going to happen is the left shoulder is going to dip down, causing the spine to work down a little bit on the backswing like it's doing right here. You're not doing nearly as bad. We've talked about the bobbing of the spine in the past, or the bobbing of the head. What I'm just concerned with is if we took a 2x4, we would start to get the trigger of the backswing stemming more from your chest than we would just your hands and your arms. So if we can get that 2x4 and place a couple inches behind the ball and just drag it back, it'll be much easier for you to get this shaft more on this plane line with the yellow rod. I feel like in this point the hands should be closer into the body and your arms would be a little bit more connected to your chest, and then from there we feel the right wrist setting. Now I have to admit, here you're not in a bad position. You're just a little disconnected here, in my opinion, with your arms out away from your body. But you're setting the club right up through the right forearm here. We're just a little bit off right here. Notice how the butt of the club is pointing more along this line here as opposed to down that line. And the better that you can keep this in sequence, your golf swing will flow much better going back and through the golf ball. The other thing that will happen here is, notice when you get to the top, if we're setting the club properly here, your left forearm position will actually cover the entire right shoulder. I know to most instructors, this is a wonderful position here. You're not that far off, but I think in the ultimate scenario, in a perfect world scenario, that if we can get this left arm to cover that right shoulder a little bit more, you will start to see that you will not fight any steepness on your downswing. Is that steep right there? In my opinion, it's a little bit steep. But most players or most instructors say that's a pretty good position. But just knowing your tendencies, that every once in a while you might fight the pull or the hook, we'd like to see that shaft plane just shallowed out a little bit more. If you took a look at to the extreme, for example, would be Ricky Fowler. If you can find a video of his backswing on YouTube, and one day I've got his swing on video in my teaching software. One day I can show you his backswing, but he really drops the club coming from this position here. I don't know how he's able to do it, but anyhow, that would be to the extreme. But I think guys that we could copy that I really like the plane of their backswing would be like an Ernie Els. He's traditionally had a pretty good plane going back. Um, even a guy like Nick Price was really good with the plane of his backswing, and we can show you that. But what's ironic about this is like Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is working on a very similar move that you're trying to work on. He used to remember with Hank Haney, he would take it out, and then he would kind of work the club from this point back around his body. And now what we're seeing is that his hands are working a little bit more to the inside, and then he works it kind of up on a steeper swing plane. But I don't know exactly what Sean Foley and him are working on. I can only tell you what I see, and I'm not trying to judge the two of them on what they're working on. But when you look at Tiger's new move, and so far he's going through the process of making swing changes. It takes a while, and people are very critical, like of the Masters this past weekend. What happened to his swing and all that? Well, that's just part of the process. And you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. But, I'm always looking for long-term goals for you. But if we can get that club setting more along that line as opposed to the butt of the club pointing here, in my opinion, for what you're trying to do with your golf swing, this first move right here is causing most of your issues. But we have a tendency to always focus our attention on what the club is doing up here at the top. But if we improve on how we set the club down in here and the direction we take the club on, it's going to be much easier to get it to a good position at the top, which will create a better plane line as you approach the golf ball. So great job, and look forward to seeing you on the range. If you have any questions, just let me know, but continue to do that little 2x4 drill behind the golf ball. Thank you. Have a good day.